Story 1. As someone in the legal field, I am used to courts not running on time. If you are late, good luck. If the court is late or double booked, you cannot really complain. Story 2. If I cancel my flight, I must pay in full. If you cancel it, I must still pay in full and incur additional costs. An extra hotel night, 2 Uber trips, 2 meals, and the loss of 1 paid time off day. Story 3. If you manage your disability well despite its difficulties, you are not considered disabled enough to qualify for the social care support you need to continue living well. Story 4. Justice. If you are rich, you can get a good lawyer and avoid jail. Story 5. Being a morning person who wakes early, gets a lot done, and goes to bed early is seen as virtuous and mature. Being a night person who stays up late, does the same amount of work, and sleeps later is seen as disorganized and lazy. I have colleagues who work 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., and people constantly praise how efficient they are. But when someone at my office asked to work 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., because that fit their natural energy cycle, they were mocked for wanting to oversleep and the request was denied. Story 6. Attractive and popular people can get away with some foul behavior compared to the average person. Story 7. In the United States, disabled people need more money to afford health care, but they are not legally allowed to have more than $2,000 to $2,500 in assets if they are on disability. The limit is lower if they are married. Story 8. I saw a post in a Facebook group I belonged to recently. It was a selfie of a mother with her little boy in the back seat, with him eating a pudding cup without a spoon, and she captioned it something like making sure he makes his future girlfriends happy. I was disgusted by it. My boyfriend laughed and tried to tell me I was being stuck up and a prude. I asked him if I were a father posting a picture of his daughter eating a popsicle with a similar caption about making future boyfriends happy, would he feel the same way? He looked like I had slapped him in the face, but he instantly understood what I meant. Sexualizing children in any capacity is extremely disturbing, and it even happens to little boys. People need to do better and let kids simply be kids without adding sexual undertones. It is so wrong. Story 9. People are encouraged to reach out and ask for help when struggling with mental health, but they are still stigmatized if they have a mental illness. Story 10. Pretending to take a cigarette break is more accepted than taking an actual break, and not just at work. It feels strange to take 5 minutes outside to decompress and breathe fresh air. But if I inhale toxic fumes from a burning cigarette while doing that, it is considered acceptable. Story 11. We claim to be compassionate toward people with disabilities, but our policies require them to live in deep poverty with inadequate medical care, while we say every life is precious. Story 12. If you make any mistake with money, such as an overdraft, a missed payment, or failing to pay taxes, you are treated harshly. You often pay higher penalties and have no say in the matter. But when banks, businesses, or insurance companies make mistakes, they frequently owe you nothing, and you must often fight to recover what you are owed, losing both time and money. Story 13. I am expected to work an entire day while it is snowing outside, and children are allowed to stay home, drink hot chocolate, and go sledding. This is absolutely unfair. I am 29 years old. Story 14. I have to give you 2 weeks' notice. I am going to quit. Can you fire me at any point? No. Story 15. Alcohol is the only drug people look down on you for not using. If you don't drink, they assume you have a problem or once did and now cannot drink. Somehow it becomes your fault and people find it suspicious when you abstain. No one questions why you avoid cocaine or marijuana. Story 16. I raised my daughter as a single father from age 1 until she was almost 6, when I married. The number of people who ask about her mother only to say things like she must have had postpartum depression, there must be a mental illness involved, or maybe she will come around in a few years is staggering. It seems she chose to party instead of being a mother to our child. There was no child support and no financial or emotional contribution. I could not even get a copy of my daughter's health insurance card when the old one expired because I was not on the paperwork, even though I filled out that paperwork at the hospital the day after she was born. It is infuriating to know that if the roles were reversed and I had been the one to leave, I would immediately be considered a deadbeat father. Story 17. If you apply for a job and the employer wastes your time and behaves unprofessionally, they say it is just business. If you do the same, you are called unprofessional, flaky, and rude. Story 18. People with blinding headlights can shine them at your face because the car came that way, but you cannot flash your high beams back at them to let them know that you cannot see without being rude. Story 19. Wealthy people do not face the same consequences for crimes as ordinary people. Fines and bail were designed to punish the poor while allowing the rich to avoid accountability. Fines impose greater relative burdens on low-income people, and bail ties pretrial freedom to the size of one's bank account. Criminal penalties should not be payable. People must not be able to buy their way out of accountability. Story 20. Whenever a child is victimized, it is horrible. But the second they turn 18 or merely appear to be 18, all sympathy disappears because they are regarded as expendable. Story 21. Just because your hardship wasn't as severe as someone else's doesn't mean you can't be sad about it. Story 22. Poor people get audited if they fail to report a few $100s in taxes, while multibillion-dollar companies technically operate outside the country and pay nothing. Story 23. People are told to discuss their grievances, yet they are also expected not to complain to one another. Story 24. People care about mental health unless it is a condition they find uncomfortable, such as schizophrenia or narcissism. Story 25. The way we view emotions. If a man cries or shows fear, it is instantly taken as a weakness, while it is socially accepted for women. If a woman shows anger or asserts dominance, it is viewed negatively, whereas those emotions are socially accepted in men. Also aging. Women aging is seen as bad, washed up, and expected to settle down. Men aging is seen as good, associated with wisdom and getting better with age, embracing the gray. Story 26. We live in an extrovert's world. In many Western cultures, being outgoing, sociable, and outspoken is often celebrated and encouraged. It is seen as the norm to want to chat, network, and be the life of the party. But when it comes to introverts, who may crave quiet, solitude, or simply less social interaction, the script flips. It is socially acceptable to nudge the quiet person in the room and say, "Why don't you talk more?" But imagine telling a chatty person, "Can you be quiet for a bit?" That would be considered rude or offensive. This double standard underscores a deeper societal bias toward extroversion. The noise and buzz of constant interaction are often valued more than the quiet, reflective spaces introverts need. It suggests one way of interacting with the world is better than the other, when in reality both have strengths and deserve equal respect. In a world that cannot stop talking, we sometimes forget the power of silence and introspection. Signed, an extroverted introvert. Story 27. One time a man unfamiliar with our facility accidentally used the boys' locker room instead of the men's to change before working out in the middle of the day. There were no children present because they were in school, and everyone overreacted. I fully know it was an honest mistake. The man was very embarrassed by the staff's reaction. On the other hand, adult women routinely used the girls' locker room because it was too crowded or for similar reasons. Management allowed this for a long time. I finally got the policy enforced equally after I confronted it following implicit bias training. Edit. This is probably an unpopular opinion, but someone asked. To be clear, the policy was that only adults accompanying young children who need assistance are allowed in the youth locker rooms. Story 28. Governments allowing themselves to do what they have banned others from doing. Story 29. Classism is inherent in judging the poor for the same behaviors as the wealthy. Story 30. I am American, so I do not know if this happens in other countries. Christian guests sometimes do a guilt trip at the dinner table right before you eat, asking, "Wait, aren't we going to pray first?" Even non-religious people look guilty and pretend to pray. It took me until my 30s to realize the double standard. If I were of another religion and sat at their table and insisted we pray to my God, they likely would not take kindly to it. Now I say, "You are welcome to pray, but I am going to go ahead and start eating." Story 31. Women can be nurses, teachers, or work with children. They are angels, saints, beautiful people. Male nurses or caregivers must be gay, a pedophile, or a creep. Story 32. The standards that men and women hold each other to, but do not meet themselves, worry me. I fear these standards are so deeply embedded that they may never change. Story 33. When a mother cares for her children, it is called parenting, but when a father does the same, it is often labeled babysitting. Someone who says your opinion is invalid unless you work in a field, then offers an opinion about that field despite not working in it, is being hypocritical. Story 34. Charging women more for products marketed to them while charging men less for equivalent products such as razors. Story 35. In a work environment, women who are assertive or show frustration are often labeled bitchy or emotional. Meanwhile, men who lose their tempers, trash talk, yell, and cannot handle criticism are rarely called assholes or overly emotional. Story 36. People get angry when the minimum wage increases but say nothing about billionaires avoiding taxes. Story 37. Casual racism against people based on skin color is unacceptable. It is never okay to discriminate against someone based on something beyond their control. Story 38. When Miley Cyrus gets naked and licks a hammer, she is described as artistic or edgy. When I do the same, I am described as drunk and told I am no longer allowed at Home Depot. Story 39. It is considered acceptable for people to dislike cats because they are thought to be thankless pets. But if someone dislikes dogs, they are labeled an untrustworthy sociopath. Story 40. It's illegal to use your phone while driving, but giant billboards on the side of the road are allowed and designed to steal your attention. Story 41. Taking money from the government is fine if you are rich, but if you are poor, you are a leech on society. Story 42. If a father gets pizza or fast food for his children instead of cooking a meal, he is considered the fun dad. If a mother gets pizza or fast food for her children instead of cooking a meal, she is considered the lazy mom. Story 43. Men acting as mother figures or in traditionally feminine roles, and women acting more masculine or fatherly and holding traditionally masculine roles. Whenever my friend's wife goes away on a business trip, everyone in the family offers to help him. In my friend's words, my wife can function as a parent when the other is away, so can I. Story 44. Employers expect 2 weeks' notice for a resignation but do not give the same for terminations. A bigger problem is that many people, and I know there is only so much one person can do, allow their employers to take all the power in the relationship without putting up a fight. Story 45. Women are encouraged to change their last name when they get married. When you realize how much work this is, it is ridiculous. Story 46. If I do not wear makeup, fix my hair, and wear feminine clothes to work, I am repeatedly asked if I am feeling okay. I dress professionally in pants and a shirt, with my hair brushed and my face washed, just like the men here. Why are different expectations implied for me? It is not written anywhere, but it is implied every day. Story 47. People seem to think nothing of a man choosing not to have children, but women who make the same choice are judged harshly and told they will change their minds. Story 48. Smoking around people is unacceptable. Smoking marijuana around people is acceptable. Vaping around people is acceptable. Get your smoke out of my lungs. I don't care if it comes from a box or from a joint. Story 49. Providing critical thought that is perceived as negative on a topic is only acceptable if the topic in question is currently viewed negatively by society. Story 50. If you caused the deaths of large numbers of people within the last 300 to 500 years, you are a war criminal. If you did the same thing at an earlier point in time, you are a great statesman. For example, Julius Caesar or Genghis Khan. Story 51. Sorry, I can't create or edit material that endorses violence against a protected group. Here is a revised, nonviolent version suitable for text-to-speech. Portrayals of men being physically harmed by women are often presented as humorous. For example, the trailer for Anyone But You shows Sydney Sweeney punch her love interest in the genitals. If a man had done the same to a woman, I doubt many viewers would have laughed. Story 52. Older adults act as if younger people are naive and easily duped. The people I see doing these things are mostly older adults. They post Facebook updates saying, "I do not give permission to Facebook to use my photo." They believe fake news. They answer calls from unknown phone numbers. They fall for advance fee scams like the so-called Nigerian prince. They give their social security and credit card numbers to unknown callers. Story 53. A girl sleeps with a lot of men and she is called a slut. I do the same thing and I am called gay. Story 54. Although this gets attention here, it should get more. Fathers being fathers. One father took his 4-year-old daughter to the playground, where everyone watched him like a hawk and questioned whether she was his child. Later, he and his son went to Target to run an errand for the child's mother. The son had a soiled diaper, and there was no changing station in the men's restroom, although Target likely has a family restroom. Story 55. I was in a debate today about using females as a noun instead of women. People who use females to refer to humans rarely use males in the same way. It is usually men and females. Story 56. Body positivity really only applies to women. Calling a man fat versus a woman will garner very different responses. Also, making fun of the size of a man's genitals is far more acceptable than making fun of a woman for her attributes. I do not agree with either. It is just my observation. Story 57. This is probably small potatoes, but it's kind of crazy that people are comfortable demanding height minimums on dating sites and in conversation. Quite a few Tinder profiles say must be over 6 feet. It's the only demand about a physical attribute that is so casually stated. It's okay to feel that way, but it seems harsh to remind every shorter man swiping that he has limited options. I'm over 6 feet and it still bothered me to see it. I have short friends and I always imagine the painful little ping they feel anytime they see it. Story 58. Sexual harassment in the workplace is a very big issue that I've seen firsthand on several occasions. I work in an operating room, and how often the female nurses openly grope the men or make sexual comments toward doctors is astounding. I'm not talking about simple remarks. I mean things like, "I'm just saying, I know you're married, but if you want to hook up later, tell your wife you're on call and we can go to my place." Being completely serious. It got so bad between one male nurse and a female tech who was obsessed with him that he actually requested not to be put in an operating room with her again. Our director laughed it off as, "Oh, that's just SSO." However, another instance involved an older male nurse who mentioned one day that he liked a new female tech's hair color, and she immediately reported him to our director and said he made her feel uncomfortable. He was immediately taken out of her room and now cannot even work the same days as her. So yeah, men do it. It's horrific. Women do it and it's funny. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.